In the tranquil neighborhood of Queens, where rows of modest family homes stretch out like guardians of memories and dreams, lives Peter Parker. A young man with a modest smile and a mind always buried in books, Peter is not your typical teenager. His mind, sharp and inquisitive, has always yearned for knowledge, especially in the field of science. For Peter, the world is not just a place to explore, but an enigma to be understood. Peter's home, small but filled with warmth, is fragrant with Aunt May's cooking and echoes with the silence of Uncle Ben, a man of few words but deep wisdom. They were not just Peter's guardians, they were his world, the foundation upon which he was built. After the tragic death of Peter's parents, May and Ben took him under their wing, providing him with a home, love, and stability. Peter's childhood was marked by the silence of loss, but also by the strength of familial love. Aunt May, with her gentle voice and tender smile, was a source of comfort and understanding. Uncle Ben, with his practical wisdom and grounded way of life, was the rock on which Peter could lean. Their wise words and warm presence helped Peter develop into a young man with a deep sense of justice and moral fortitude. School was a sanctuary and a playground for Peter's mind. He was exceptionally gifted in the natural sciences, viewing the world through the lenses of chemistry, physics, and biology. His school days were spent between the desks, often surrounded by books and notes, and the school laboratory, where his curious mind came alive, experimenting and learning. Although his peers often regarded him as a nerd, Peter found solace in the fact that knowledge provides power, the power to understand, and perhaps one day, the power to change the world. His introspectiveness and inner strength molded him into a loner, but one with vision and dreams. Peter's everyday life, filled with school obligations and the silence of home, experienced an unimaginable turnaround one ordinary autumn day. That day, Peter and his schoolmates visited the Advanced Genetic Research Laboratory of Oscorp Industries, known for its pioneering achievements in biotechnology. While his peers left him to marvel at the complex devices and jars filled with multicolored substances, Peter's attention was drawn to a particular exhibit, a container with genetically modified spiders. These spiders, a product of advanced genetic engineering, were part of an experiment exploring the possibilities of enhancing human abilities. Engrossed in studying these small but extraordinary creatures, Peter didn't notice one of the spiders slowly descending from the ceiling, hanging on an almost invisible thread. By the time Peter finally noticed the spider, it was too late. The spider quickly descended and bit him on the hand. The pain was sharp and sudden, piercing Peter's skin like a thin needle. Initially, the sensation was just a painful sting, but soon something unusual began to spread. Peter's vision became sharper and the sounds around him more intense. That night, in his room, as he lay in bed, he thought about the event. He could not have imagined how that one small bite would change his entire life. The days that followed were filled with discoveries and surprises. Peter quickly noticed changes in his body and abilities. He discovered he could perform physical feats that were previously impossible, such as climbing walls, extraordinary strength and agility, and lightning-fast reflexes. This unexpected change confused him, but at the same time, excitement and curiosity grew within him. Faced with these new abilities, Peter realized that his life would never be the same again. This young man, who until yesterday was just an ordinary high school student, now stood on the threshold of something extraordinary. It was the beginning of a new era in Peter's life, an era that would take him on a journey full of challenges, discoveries, and ultimately, heroism. Every new day in Queens usually brought the usual routine for Peter Parker, but this morning was different. His thoughts revolved around his newly acquired powers and the possibilities they carried. As Peter experimented with this unusual gift, he was unaware of how soon his life would change forever. One evening after school, Peter decided to test his abilities at a local fair. Excited and somewhat frightened, he discovered that he could overcome every challenge, surpassing all opponents in strength and agility. At that moment, Peter's attention was solely focused on his new powers, neglecting the wise words of Uncle Ben about responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. That evening ended in tragedy. A careless act, the decision not to act when he could have, led to the death of Uncle Ben, the man who was Peter's rock, his moral compass. Uncle Ben was killed during a robbery that Peter could have prevented but did not. The loss of Uncle Ben was painful and devastating, awakening deep pain and a sense of guilt in Peter. In the moments that followed the tragedy, Peter withdrew into himself, facing deep emotional pain and self-examination. His sorrow turned into determination, realizing he must use his powers for good. Peter saw that his new ability was not just a gift, but also a responsibility. This event was a turning point in Peter's life. From the ashes of tragedy, a hero was born. Peter decided to use his powers to protect the innocent and fight against injustice. He created a costume and mask, forming an identity that would become a symbol of hope and protection: Spider-Man. In the labyrinth of emotions and responsibilities that shaped Peter Parker's life as Spider-Man, there existed a bright flame that burned relentlessly: his love for Mary Jane Watson. Mary Jane, with her fiery red hair and infectious smile, was not just the girl next door. She was a dream, the embodiment of tenderness and understanding, a light in Peter's sometimes dark world. Peter and Mary Jane had known each other since childhood, sharing memories and moments that wove the fabric of their deep friendship. Their relationship evolved over the years, transforming from friendly closeness into something much deeper and more complex. Peter's heart had long known that Mary Jane was not just a friend. She was his first and deepest love. However, Peter's secret double life as Spider-Man added complexity to their relationship. The fear that his enemies might use his loved ones as a means of attack kept Peter in a state of constant worry and secrecy. This secret often created a wall between him and Mary Jane, despite his deep desire to open up to her and share his true world. On the other hand, Mary Jane was battling her own dreams and ambitions. She was not just a cover girl. She was a talented and determined young woman, aspiring to become a successful actress. Her path was filled with rejections and successes, and throughout it all, Peter was her quiet support, always present to offer a word of encouragement or a shoulder to cry on. Despite all the challenges, the love between Peter and Mary Jane was unquestionable. It was a love that survived many storms, a love that grew despite obstacles, a love that was real in the hearts of two young people. In a world where Peter Parker bore the burden of being Spider-Man, Mary Jane Watson was his peace, his home, and his refuge. Their love story was not perfect, but it was real. Real in a world of superheroes and villains. Real in a world where true love is a rarity, and true heroes even rarer. As Peter Parker, better known as Spider-Man, faced the challenges of his double life, his fight against evil led him on a collision course with two mortal enemies who would define his destiny as a superhero: the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus. The Green Goblin, born from ambition and madness, was the alter ego of Norman Osborn, the father of Peter's best friend, Harry. Norman Osborn, the owner of Oscorp Industries, was a brilliant scientist and business mogul, whose quest for ultimate power crossed the boundaries of reason. Experimenting with an enhancing serum, Osborn became a victim of his own creation, transforming into the psychotic and merciless Green Goblin. This transformation was not just physical. It distorted his mind, turning him into a ruthless and unpredictable villain. The Green Goblin was not just a physical opponent for Spider-Man, he was also an emotional storm. Peter found himself torn between fighting the evil that the Green Goblin represented and confronting the painful truth that this villain was his friend's father. The conflicts between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin were epic, filled with violence, cunning, and deep emotional conflicts. On the other hand, Dr. Octopus, born as Dr. Otto Octavius, was a brilliant nuclear scientist whose life was forever changed by a tragic laboratory accident. The accident fused 4 mechanical surgical arms to his body, giving him extraordinary strength and agility. However, this change also affected his mind, turning him into a megalomaniacal and vengeful villain. Dr. Octopus, or Doc Ock as Spider-Man called him, presented a unique challenge to Peter. His intellect, combined with mechanical strength, made him not just physically dangerous, but also an intellectually daunting opponent. Their conflicts were battles of mind and muscle, strategic games where every move was crucial. The Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus were not ordinary villains. They were manifestations of Peter's deepest fears and dilemmas. These enemies tested Peter's limits, both physically and emotionally, exposing him to the most severe trials and conflicts. Through his battles with these powerful enemies, Peter learned about strength, resilience, and the price of heroism. Every conflict with the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus was not just a physical fight, but also an emotional journey that shaped Peter into the superhero he was meant to be. His determination to confront these villains regardless of personal risk reflected his fearless spirit and unwavering commitment to justice. Dawn over New York brought a new day, but for Peter Parker, better known as Spider-Man, it meant another day of struggle, sacrifice, and uncertainty. His path as a superhero was paved with challenges that tested not only his physical limits, but also his emotional endurance. As time passed, Peter's understanding of heroism deepened. Each battle with criminals reinforced his determination to defend justice. His dual identities, as a high school student and a superhero, were in constant conflict, creating tension that tested his mental state. The fight was not just on the streets. Peter faced personal sacrifices that came with his choice to be Spider-Man. His relationship with Mary Jane was in a constant whirlwind of uncertainty, and friendships were strained by his secrets. Peter Parker's everyday life was filled with constant worry for the safety of his loved ones, knowing that every step he took as Spider-Man could bring danger to their doorstep. Yet, despite all these challenges, Peter remained steadfast in his mission. He realized that heroism was not just a matter of strength and power, but also the ability to cope with losses, confront fear, and make difficult decisions. Spider-Man was not just a symbol of the fight against evil. He was a symbol of humanity, representing courage in facing one's own weaknesses and determination in striving to make the world a better place.